All right, I think I got this thing working. I think we're recording.
Are we live?
I think we're live to tape, you know.
We're human beings who are live. This is not a live event.
Yeah. No, not so
true.
much.
Yeah,
Not so
that's
much.
good.
What are you drinking, Mike?
Well, really classy. I'm drinking a lime beer and a green can for St. Patrick's Day. That's what it is. It's for St. Patrick's Day.
Nice. That is St. Patty's Day is coming up. And do you have like normal traditions for St. Patrick's Day that you engage in?
Yeah, my normal tradition is to forget that it's happening until the day of. That is literally my normal tradition.
Mine too.
There's one year, I think, when I lived in Atlanta, there was a great Irish pub, and a bunch of my friends at the time were really into it, and so we went there. But that is the extent of which I've ever done anything for St. Patrick's Day. So yeah, I'm not good at these minor holidays, or larger ones for that matter.
So I've lived like the last, I guess, 8 years. Maybe I've lived in a downtown area and with an entertainment district pretty close by. And so like I always will, it'll be like 1 PM or something on a random Tuesday, and I'll be coming through the entertainment district, you know, and it'll be like the place is full of people and they blocked roads off. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on? It's Tuesday. Everybody's drinking. And then I realized, oh, it's St. Patrick's Day. So
it's St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day. So I am drinking Powerade.
Wonderful.
And the reason I'm drinking Powerade is because I was recommended that by the doctor because I got the COVID.
You got the vid.
I did. I got the COVID. I said, "Get behind me, Satan!" And it wasn't. It wasn't bad. Thankfully, like I didn't have it, but it was really mild. And today is my last day of quarantine. It'll be my day 10. Don't have any symptoms. Just a little kind of tired. That's it. But
did you get the Trump drugs?
I don't know. I may have. It's called monoclonal antibodies, and it's an infusion they give you.
Did you feel like enraged? Did you feel powerful?
I wish. No, I literally just sat in a little comfortable chair in the hospital, and you know, with an IV in there, and it's like it takes an hour to give you the drug, and then they have to watch you for an hour to make sure you don't like start foaming at the mouth, and then that's it. And then like 2 days later, I felt great, you know. So
we've progressed quite a bit in treatment. So truly, thank God.
Yeah.
So you look great.
Thank you.
Nobody would know by looking at you. They would say, that Jake Fisher looks wonderful.
I appreciate that's very kind of you to say.
Yep.
So you're listening to the Talky podcast, where we talk about the worlds of sales and marketing and technology, business strategy, a little bit of entrepreneurship and how those things interact. You can find us online at talkytalkypod.com and everywhere the finest podcasts are consumed. Minor trigger warning. There might be an occasional cuss word. It's like we say, it's not the central part of the show, but you know, occasionally an explicitive comes out as we feel impassioned about particular topics.
You know what's fucking hilarious about this trigger warning?
No, what?
You know what's really goddamn funny about this trigger warning?
What?
I gotta tell you. Okay, sometimes when I'm working during the day, I like to listen to comedians in the background. I got my phone here. I got YouTube. It's like hour-long interviews with funny comedians that I like, and that's my background white noise, right? So I've been on a tiny little bit of a Bob Newhart kick, and Bob Newhart is just absolutely hilarious, right?
Oh, I love Newhart. Yeah.
So I'm on a Bob Newhart kick, and Bob Newhart and Don Rickles are friends, and so sometimes they have like funny interviews together, which are really great. So I'm listening to a Bob Newhart presentation, and he's speaking at National Press Club in like 92 or 93. Clinton's president at the time. And Bob Newhart, who is, you know, the accountant comedian, right? Mm-hmm. Like he literally was an accountant before becoming a comedian. He's the clean, dry comedian, right? All of that. And during this presentation, probably about halfway through, he's being really funny. He's answering questions, and all of a sudden he brings up how sensitive everyone is these days, how easily offended everyone is these days, how you can't say anything and people all need to lighten up. And then he tells kind of an off-color, not like explicitly racist joke, but a racially insensitive joke. Yeah. Right. About some Asian community and some stereotypes. Right. Okay. And then he was like, oh, everyone should just be funny. And I started thinking about that in that, you know, we think it's like this new thing that people complain about how sensitive people are these days, but people have been like adjusting and realizing that there's been insensitivity for a while, and there hasn't been wider societal acceptance of that. And so it just makes me think about the saying that everything that's old is new.
Yeah.
Right. Everything that's new is old.
Yeah.
And a lot of the conversations that we have now are conversations that have been had for a long time ago. It's just sometimes they don't ring true with the same degree of clarity or maybe truthfulness or authenticity as they do. Not actually related to trigger warning at all. I just fucking felt like saying that.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things I experience is I think there's definitely truth to that, because this idea of, we were calling it political correctness 20 years ago is what
right.
I mean, they made a movie about it. Do you remember the movie? It was this goofy college movie with Jeremy Piven called PCU.
Oh, I missed that one.
Oh yeah, no, you gotta dig into the Netflix to get. I don't know if it's on Netflix. You got to get into that one. They made a movie about it. Yeah,
weekend plans. Here we go.
Right. And so, but I think this idea of like, kind of how we speak and how, what terms we're using, and I think ideas around being sensitive to other people, into groups of people, which is always I think that can be a fraught topic. For me, I think a lot of it's all about where you find yourself kind of in the cycle age-wise. So like I have always been like, even as a young kid growing up, like I feel like I was raised with this idea of kind of, we always talk about like tolerance, like you gotta be tolerant of people that are very different than you. Gotta do that, and I always believed in that. And so, but as a young person, and even in my 20s and 30s, I always kind of felt myself that way. Now, as I'm getting closer to 50, like some of these, what I perceive to be pretty extreme, pretty extreme perspectives on some of these topics make me go, man, these people are crazy. But I would, if I were 20 years younger, I would be just like them, so it's just really kind of an age thing almost, I think.
And to bring it all back to why we have the Talky Pod and the kinds of things we're interested. So one of the things that we have to be mindful of as salespeople, marketers, communicators is how what we are going to say will land with the person who is across the table, on the other side of the email inbox, on the other side of the LinkedIn message, someone who's watching or looking at that content of your site. The goal is to oftentimes persuade or move someone to take some action. And Sales 101, people are going to buy things from people who seem like them, people who they know and like, or seem like people who they know and like. And so sometimes, salespeople can get on a rant from time to time and rant about things like that and how hard that is. And so I also heard one of those this week, which was kind of funny. And so, but all that just makes me think about when I was in the religious studies as a younger man. There was a specific kind of interpretation that I believe was called reader response criticism, which thinks about and analyzes a text based on how it hits the reader as much as what the original intent of the author was, right? Mm-hmm. So they intended to talk about this, but really what this makes me think about is this, and connects to other things. So reader response, listener response, audience response, taking the audience into consideration, all key 101 principles. Yeah.
Interesting. That's awesome. So, hey, if you're looking for to reach out to Mike, by the way, you can find him on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/Slack Mike. Again, linkedin.com/in/Slack Mike. I'm on Twitter. Jake Fisher OFCL is my is the new handle.
Oh, is that a new handle?
It's the new handle. Yeah, I've set, so the old account has got so much ridiculous, non-professional, like jokey, stupid stuff on there that I have actually made in a professional account that is like professional. I'm a pro. I'm a upright, standing member of the professional community. So
do you have a little blue circle and checkbox?
No, not yet. But I mean,
you're not verified. You're professional.
No, I'm not verified. I'm professional. It's just, essentially what it is that's the account that I'm not putting the, like the random thoughts that I think are funny, but aren't actually funny to other people. So that's
interesting. Well, I'll have to follow that now, because I don't think I don't think I'm there.
I'll be linking up like all the stuff we do here and like, all the stuff I write, all of that, like people go to that account and be like, man, that Jake Fisher, he's a serious guy, man. He really is dedicated to just being real serious about stuff.
Then they're going to stumble accidentally on the old account that still has jokes and rants on all sorts of things. Like, and once Thunder basketball.
Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You reading something right now, Mike?
Yeah, I'm reading a fantasy book called The City We Became.
Interesting.
And it is a very interesting book. If I read fantasy, sci-fi, horror, my favorite author is Stephen King. And in some ways, Stephen King he's not only a great writer, he's very accessible. Mm-hmm. He makes the stories very easy to follow on purpose, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't use an approach that I would say challenges you as much. He challenges you for perseverance because he's going to write a 700-page novel, right? Mm-hmm. But there's going to be exhaustive backstory, and it's going to be very clear what's going on. But that's not the writing style of a lot of folks. And so at the beginning of this book, the first 20 pages or so, it's very disjointed, and it's really telling the story of someone who's having somewhat of like, not quite an out-of-a-body experience, but out-of-mind experience, very confusing experience. And it doesn't say, the main character is having an out-of-body experience, and then you read for 20 pages about what it is. It just tells the story in the way that person is perceiving what's happening around them. So you got to like sift through 20 pages to get to, that was the prologue, and now here's chapter 1, and now you start the story. So that's what I've just finished, and so now it was like a big accomplishment to get through all that. Now I got to read the rest of the book.
That's awesome, though. That's great. That's super interesting. I'll have to check that one out. Stephen King. I'm talking about briefly about Stephen. I like Stephen King. The stuff I've read, I struggle with the horror stuff. Like I just can't quite get there. But he wrote one of my very favorite books of all time. Was actually a set of 4 novellas, and you probably are familiar with this. It's called Different Seasons. And so there are 4 stories in it, and each of them they're novellas, so they're not quite short stories, but they're not quite novels, and so they're put together in 4 novellas, and so each representing a season. And so 3 of the 4 novellas have been adapted into movies, and all of them have been pretty good, and one of them is an all-timer. And
Shawshank Redemption, right?
Shawshank Redemption, that's right.
Which I believe in the original title, the novella title is Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. That's exactly right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the other 2, one of them was about a teenage boy who discovered that his elderly neighbor was a former SS Nazi officer, and it was adapted into a movie called The Apt Pupil.
Interesting.
Yeah, really good, with the guy, I forgot the actor's name. It's the fellow who played like Magneto and, English actor, that guy.
Ian something?
Yes, that guy. He was very good in it.
Yeah.
And then the other one the story was called The Body, and it was about the four boys, kind of like 10, 11, 12-year-old, 13-year-old boys who were like walking along looking for a body. It was Will Wheaton, and I think what's his name? River Phoenix was in it, and Jerry O'Connell, and it was like Stand By Me, maybe, or something like that. And so 3 movies from this one, from this one, and I love that.
If you think about the number of classic movies that come from Stephen King books or novels or short stories, it is impressive. I mean, it is very, very impressive. Like classic stories. The town in Mexico that Andy Dufresne escapes to at the end, Zihuatanejo. And so that's on my bucket list. I'm like, Shawshank Redemption is my all-time favorite movie. Okay. And so I've got a poster of it in my garage, right? Like I love Shawshank Redemption. So that's on my bucket list. I'm going to go there one day.
You got that. Sounds fantastic. I think that's a great. I just don't go there on a Trailways bus though.
No, I won't go there on a Trailways bus. It's a bit of a flight because it's on the other side of Mexico, so it's not nearly as convenient as Cancun, which is just boom straight down, right?
So it's on the west coast. Okay.
It does.
So
Yeah,
like, does it border like the Sea of Cortez, or is it south of that even?
I'm not sure about the bodies of water around it, but the airport is Ixtapa/Zihuatanejo. So if you know where
cool.
Ixtapa is,
Okay.
it's right by there.
Oh, that's fan. That sounds like a plan.
It is.
That's a
I'm gonna
life
do
goal.
it one of these days.
Speaking of Mexico, I'm actually reading. I do this every once in a while. I like to switch it up and really get a lot of enjoyment in reading fiction in Spanish. I love that. I love doing that. I read in Spanish much slower than I do in English. It's my second language, and I started learning it when I was in my early 30s. And so it's not like something I learned when I was a kid or young. So I really had to kind of slog through the learning it. It was not something that came quickly or easily, and still reading it, is slower, but I really kind of prefer it in a lot of circumstances, but just because of just some features of the language. It's really beautiful language. It's different than English. But what I'm reading right now, it's a juvenile literature. It's kind of like kind of like Harry Potter, like adults read it, but it's really kind of meant for younger people. And it's called La Ciudad de las Bestias, or City of Beasts. Wow. By really, really well-known Spanish language author. I'm going to say she's Peruvian, Chilean, I don't know. But her name is Isabel Allende. And it's this really fun adventure story about a young boy named Alexander Cold, who ends up in the jungle, and they find this, hidden city. And it's just super fun adventure like that. Total escapism, and that's it. But I love reading it in Spanish. And I think maybe because I think about this a lot, I've talked to my wife about it a lot. I think one of the reasons why I really like to read in Spanish is because in English I read really quickly, but in Spanish I can't, and so I really have to. It's like I'm savoring the experience, because like in the time that I could read an entire book, I can get in English I can read maybe 3 chapters in Spanish. So yeah, it kind of slows me down.
Well, I think that's very interesting, and I'm trying to incorporate some practices in my life right now that intentionally slow me down and take longer to do. I feel like I feel like maybe we've talked about that, but that's one of the challenges I feel like of the remote COVID working world, is that there's so much rapid context switching. I feel my brain defaulting to that and then getting used to that and wanting that and craving that. And so I'm trying to train myself to work slower and longer on some things.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
I think that's good. What can you give any specific examples? Any tips on?
I'm sketching, so I bought a sketchbook and pencils, and so I've got sometimes it's stuff that my kids are interested. Sometimes there's prompts from this book. Sometimes it's just things that I'm interested in, and open it up and then try to spend 30 minutes sketching. So I mean, one way to think about it would be setting a target time of how long you want to be focused on one task, right? So if I want to say I want to focus on this really intense task for 30 minutes, and then kind of try it out the first time, see how long you can go. Can you go 10 minutes? Can you go 5 minutes before you grab the phone, or you have to do something, right? Get up, move around. And then just benchmark yourself there and try to slowly work your way up. Now I'm going to do 12 and 14, 20, right? And work your way up, just like you would do with training for a race or a marathon.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I like the idea of with just the sketching piece, where it's like because you're purposely having to spend time in that moment with the topic or the subject that you're drawing.
And getting more thorough and being focused in more deeply, right, in the subtleties. That's where I really want to exercise that muscle, seeing and appreciating those subtleties.
I love it. That's fantastic. Hey, you want to move on to our stories of the day? You picked out a really interesting one here.
Yeah, and we've talked about this general kind of thing several times, and it just keeps coming up. It's almost endless, and there's another major tech company disclosing a hack, essentially, right? And so this time, Microsoft disclosed some sophisticated attack that was used on their business email service, which is called Microsoft Exchange.
Right.
And so they actually identified it was a Chinese hacking group. and there's 60,000 known victims, which I'm assuming doesn't mean individuals, it means companies whose Exchange servers were hacked into. And so the challenge with this kind of hack is that, and what was done is that a backdoor was created, which means that even after Microsoft updates or patches their servers or their software so that you can't do this hack again at a new client or a new user, if those backdoors are in place, until you remediate that in whatever way you need to, your data's still at risk, right? Username, passwords, and things like that. So, this is what's really incredible about this is that I think this is something like the 9th major hack along these lines, like in the last 9 months. Or I'm sorry, in the last 12 months. Like there's been a number of them, right? And what part of like the business aspect of this that's really fascinating to me, it just shows how big these companies are and are insulated from individual products, right? So like Microsoft's stock price is down a little bit from its peak on February 12th, but like not a lot, right? Like there's major vulnerability and all the rest of that, and everything's just fine, right? Which is fascinating to me, and how normalized in some ways this is. And so I'm kind of curious about your perspective on that, and because oftentimes a selling point on certain approaches is being secure and all the rest of that, and so sometimes I wonder how valid of a selling point is that, right? Is there anything we can do, right? Is it like Night of the Living Dead and zombies and they're going to come to get us no matter what, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely, you have to have a multi-layer approach. It's got to be like, I think your day-to-day activities and habits have got to be, you got to have good habits, meaning that we're not sending sensitive information via email ever anyway. And even via Slack and any of those, like those kinds of things, we don't send those, like it has to be like that kind of discipline, almost kind of like how we've had discipline in maintaining our own safety as within this pandemic. You think of it as like it's a digital pandemic, and how like one of the easiest ways you can protect yourself is to not put your information out there. Don't put anything that's sensitive on any kind of cloud service, if you can. Don't put anything, minimize the amount of sensitive information that you have actually out there on some kind of a connected computer. And then from there, the things that you have to have on a connected computer or device or of some kind, make sure we're using encryption, make sure we're encrypting that data. So even if the hacker can get in, the data is hashed. It's, and then from there, when we're communicating, and sending this kind of data, we need to make sure not only are the files encrypted when they're sent, but they need to be sent via secure channels. And so I really feel like the analogy that I like is this analogy of like, if somebody really, really wants to get into your house, really, 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 really want to, they're probably going to be able to do it. The key is going to be to make it not worth it. Like,
interesting.
Make it not worth it. Like what can we do in order to make it so difficult for someone to get to the data that they're after that it just turns out to not be worth it to them?
No, that's very interesting. So along those lines, one of the things I've been thinking about is, adjusting some business practices. So I've got, financial advisor, I've got friends in the financial industry. Sometimes, they'll send a document and they don't just attach it in an email, right? If it's a financially sensitive document, right? They'll put it in some sort of secure, extra password protected thing, right? And for a while I was like, gosh, that's so annoying. I've got to go through that extra step of doing that. And now I'm more and more in the lines of, email really shouldn't have anything personal in it, right? Anything along those lines, right? If you're sending contracts, you should use the service. You should be using DocuSign or something else, right? Right? Because sometimes those things will have, protected information that you wouldn't want any wider group to know, right? And the challenge is, it's not just about your own security practice, very similar to, COVID and infection and spread. It's not just about how secure you are, it's about how protected you are. It's about secure and protected the other person is on the receiving end of that information as well. and you really have no knowledge of that. So, I feel like it's a very good and considerate thing to do, knowing now what kind of, how prevalent all this is. But also there's probably some degree of education, because you got bosses out there like me that, it'd be easier just to slap this information in here or attach this file, and instead taking the extra step and possibly even including it as part of your logistical procedural aspects of your sales pitch. Here's how we do business. This is one of the things we do this because we value this and we think it's important to you, right? One way to show respect for your clients and make you less of a, sleazy sales guy and someone who really cares about them and wants what's best for them.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think that's important. It's a really challenging, like when I think about this particular topic, just data security in general, it's complicated and challenging in our world. Like it just is getting so much more complicated. It's never getting less complicated. I think to myself sometimes when I have these thoughts about it and I start kind of spinning out a little bit mentally, I'm like, my initial thought is like, well, I got to simplify my life. I got to I'm looking around my stuff. I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm looking around my apartment. I'm like, oh, look, I got like 35 different shirts. I just need to have like 5, I need like 7. Like I'm wanting to control. I find myself wanting to control the complexity of something that I can control. And then I have to stop and go, no, Jake, no. You're just spinning out. You're freaking out because the world is too complicated around you and you can't understand it. And it's like, okay. That is the state of life. So
the overreact, when you feel out of control, the overreaction is to try to control everything, and one way to control everything is to get rid of things. Right. Then there's less to mess around with.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
But I have to stop and be like, okay, this is not about my stuff. This is not about my 35 t-shirts over here. This is about other stuff.
Yeah. 35. Come on.
Yeah,
come on.
That's a lot of t-shirts.
Come on, a little over the top, Jake Fisher.
Yeah,
official.
Yeah. I've got old t-shirts from I've got old radio station t-shirts from when I was a radio disc jockey, like in the 90s. Like free,
Those are probably the softest t-shirts in the world.
Oh yeah, and they don't fit anymore either. They can barely fit over my left boob.
Trigger warning.
Yeah, sorry.
That's just great.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But yeah, anyway, I don't know. They're mementos, I guess. So
it's important to keep those.
Yeah. So I guess we're moving. It looks like kind of it feels like that we're coming to the end of the pandemic. We've got, people are getting euthanized or not euthanized. Sorry, vaccinated. They're not getting euthanized. I don't know why that came up.
Freud.
We're euthanizing all of our people so they don't get COVID. You know what? Euthanized people don't get COVID, though.
That's true.
Absolutely, factually true.
They also don't attend in-person events and spend money.
That's an unfortunate part of
it. Which hurts the economy. So I don't think any politician will be in favor of it.
No, not youth.
Well, so I think I just saw an article that South by Southwest is going to return in 2021 with panels addressing a changed world. And so it'll be interesting to see. And I don't think that they're going to have the same kind of event that they've had the past in terms of in person and all the rest of that. I think a lot of this will be virtual. However, it got me thinking about how, because I just saw that, I got so excited, right? Mm-hmm. Oh man, in-person events. And I started thinking about what are people going to do? People in our profession, what are they going to do when they can have conferences again? What are they going to do when they can have events again? What are they going to do when they can take out people to dinner again? What are they going to do when they can travel again? And how, I had a small taste of this recently in a relatively safe setting, and it was joyous. It was absolutely, joyous is really the only word to use to describe. And, it was also over the top in a really wonderful way. And there's going to be a lot of businesses that are really going to boom, who are providing services to people who do in-person events, in-person gatherings, all those things. Mm-hmm. This is a great time to figure out some business model where you can help people, help salespeople who haven't taken clients out to dinner or drinks for a long time, if you could help them figure out how to do that at scale. Like if that's a business or service, helping to either book those appointments or provide those spaces or provide those meals or provide those experiences. I think that expense accounts that were not used are going to be full, and people might be blowing through those in May through July.
Yeah. Yeah. What businesses, like, I mean, do we feel like that this will be really helpful, and will we see a resurgence in hospitality, restaurants especially? I
100% think so. Just on this little tiny sliver of a taste of something that I had recently, and the experience and the excitement around all that, I think there's going to be a honeymoon phase where I think it will. I think people are just. I think it's going to be great, right? So I think a lot of restaurants are going to have, we heard yesterday the president talk about a relatively normal 4th of July, right? So I would imagine sometime after that, let's call it early fall, there's going to be, whether or not that's a different argument is, from a public health perspective, what should happen, what I'm anticipating will happen is that from a hospitality perspective, people are going to have a really good time in the fall. Yeah.
I think I'm going to try my best. I think you're right. One of the things that we saw locally around here, if people don't know, we both live in Oklahoma City. And so, a burgeoning tech hub, by the way, great place to start a business.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting though. So we saw a lot of the places that I really love to go. Unfortunately, they went out. Like they went out of business. And there's a handful. Like just I live in a downtown area, and I love to walk around. And like some of my favorite places that I would go to all the time, man, those places are done now, and those spaces are empty. And I'm hoping that. It's the obviously natural cycle of business that sometimes that happens, and it is what it is. I want to see what this new, is something great going to grow out of this? I hope. New concepts,
That's a very interesting question. I hadn't thought about the new concept. I do think it will be, strange. The first few times that you're in a large space with a large number of people or a closed room, right? Because that has been perceived to be scary and bad, right? And it has been scary and bad in many real ways. And so there's a lot of morality around should or shouldn't and all the rest of those things. And so a lot of that gets baked into your psyche. And so you're going to now get to a point where, you walk into a crowded room in the back of a building with low ceilings and not a lot of ventilation, right? And you immediately start feeling anxious, like, oh no, that's not a safe spot, right? Yeah. When before it would have been, that's just the back room, that's just the spot, right? So I think there will be some trepidation over some folks, and it'll take time. But once it all becomes safe and there's a certain percentage that's immunized, not euthanized, we should. I think it'll take a while to retrain our brains psychologically. I think there'll still be a little bit of a hang up though. But people are excited to get out.
The joke that I make I make this joke, and it's probably an insensitive joke, and somebody's going to try to cancel me for this joke. But the joke that I like to make is that I've been, it's been a year now. Really, this upcoming week marks a year for a lot of us. Like the piece the thing that really brought it all home to me when it started was when they canceled the NBA game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the game was about to start, and the game was canceled. Like, bam, we're done. The world is different immediately. And so in that year, so the joke that I make is that we've, the virus, the pandemic, is like a kidnapper, and I got Stockholm syndrome. That's how it feels. That's how it feels. And so I think it is going to be weird. I've thought about this. Like, what's it going to be? What's it going to be like to walk into a Thunder game? I'm going, dude. That's the thing I'm looking forward to. Going to an NBA game, man.
I'm more excited about. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How amazing is that going to be, Mike? I mean, I'm going to get us some tickets when it opens back up. You and I are going to go. I'm going to get us some really good tickets.
Awesome.
It'll be fun.
It'll be incredible. I had the same exact thought.
But you're probably going to have to hold me through most of it because I'll be an emotional wreck.
Just like an average time we hang out anyway.
Normal
that's
time.
Just normal. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was specifically thinking about Thunder game. I was thinking, man, because I watch the Thunder. I like the Thunder. I follow the Thunder. I don't go to a lot of games. It's not something I think about, oh, I'm going to go to a Thunder game. But like more than previously, I've been thinking about, man, I'm going to go to a Thunder game as soon as I get back up. I don't care if it's Loud City up in the top. If it's good tickets, that's great. I just want to go and see all those people, and it'll be crazy. And I already know, because I think about it and I visualize it, and it already gives me the shakes. Like walking through the door and all those people with no masks, I'm already like, it's going to be so weird to see 10,000 people with no masks.
Yeah. It's more like 20, but yeah.
Yeah,
I know, man. I know. I'm the same way. I'm having those. I have those same feelings and thoughts, but super excited about just what's to come in that.
And that's where like the consumer behavior, consumer attitudes, as they shift, and behavior shifts following attitude shifts, right? So the excitement to get back out, there's a business opportunity there. I wish I was smart enough to figure out how to provide value to people and make a business out of that.
Yeah, no, it's a great option. I think some entrepreneur who's in the right spot with the right knowledge will be able to jump on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, one of the things that I noticed is kind of, and it sort of is related to what we're talking about, but it's a little bit different, and that is the work from home phenomenon, and so it's really looking like a lot of these larger companies, a lot of these larger tech companies, big employers, that they're looks like they're really liking having a lot of their workforce working remotely and working from home. And I'm wondering, it seems like that's something that may stick. Like we may see some of that sticking, and I start thinking about what does that do for lots of businesses, and there's been discussions about, especially like commercial real estate, as offices become less important because you've got more people working. What does that do for are we going to continue to see people and workers moving out of higher, more expensive urban areas, where normally they would have been tied to those urban areas because where their workplace is? Now they don't have to. Are they going to be moving to places that maybe are less expensive and potentially more livable for families? I mean, I think, we live, again, I'm cheerleading for Oklahoma City, but we live in a place that's got a great balance between, amenities. You can get what you need. We've got great restaurants. We've got nice culture. The downtown and in our entertainment districts are fun. But you know what? There's not a lot of bad traffic. I mean, there's a little bit. But have you been to Austin? Have you tried to drive in Austin? No thanks.
I did about a year ago. Yeah, it was crazy.
It's just not, and that's a great town. I mean, Austin's fantastic. But
since 1990, I just saw a stat on this. I think since 1990, their population has increased 136%.
That's crazy.
136% since 1990, right? I think Oklahoma City's like in that same period, it's like maybe 30%, right? Over 22 years,
Yeah, right. Wow. That's a lot. It's
really huge.
So I look at that and I'm like, man, I'm wondering, like, our cities like us, like is Oklahoma City and Louisville and, Omaha and
Wichita.
St. Louis even,
Yeah. Well, I think there's a convergence of a couple factors, because to some degree, there are people who have figured this out a long time ago, and there's just been less visibility into it and less. But I think some aspect of this is true. Like I know somebody who works out of South America, and just because they want to work out of South America and they figured out how to have a small consulting business and they work remote, and that's what they've done, right? It wasn't because of COVID. It was just because that's where they wanted to live and that's what they could do, right? So
sure. To
some degree, people have already figured out how to do this. Now there's more visibility into it. Now there's more companies that are less particular. I think what will be really interesting, and I think it'll be a major employment benefit that is really going to push some companies, and some companies are really going to struggle and lose workers, is I think it will be, if not completely normal, it will be expected amongst the younger generation of workers that they at the very least have a flexible office policy, where you can work from home maybe maybe up to some certain threshold, or you have to be in the office at least this minimum threshold, but you don't have to all the time, right? I think those things are going to be now, like when I first started working, that would have never been an employee benefit I would have thought about or asked about or wanted, right? It was you show up, you go to the office, like you go to the office and you work, and you're there every day at 8 o'clock, right? Punch in, punch out. Yep. Now it's going to be much more flexible. I think younger employees are going to think, oh, 5 days a week, why? Like, why not have work from home Fridays or work from wherever Thursdays?
Yeah, I think we're going to see that, and I think and we're doing that. Like in my company, that's the direction we're going. Is and I think the way that we're going to end up doing it, and I think you'll see a lot of businesses doing it, is like with newer hires, you're going to want them in the office more. Like, so it may be when someone starts, in their first 3 months, 6 months, whatever, that amount of time the amount of time you need to get an idea of like what their work habits are like, what their work product is like. But once they're comfortable and the organization management is comfortable with their ability to be able to get the job done and not needing to have necessarily someone there to help them or to manage them all the time, then I think from there, individuals get to earn that. And, if you want to go, like if you want to go work 3 months from Buenos Aires, from Argentina, freaking do it,
Absolutely.
That's great. You can do that, I have worked, I think I've told you this, I have worked for weeks at a time from Costa Rica, where, where I studied Spanish, and I've got friends down there and just really love spending time down there with my friends and hanging out on the beach. And I've done that and it's been fine. So touching back on our first news topic though. So as the workforce becomes more geographically spread out, the data security becomes even more important because sensitive information that may have been on an intranet, in an office maybe is now like being beamed across the world. Like, how do we have to be even more careful about our data security?
I think that's absolutely critical. And it's really important that companies have a security process as part of their onboarding, right? Yeah. And I don't know if you have one. I don't know if you've ever been part of a company that says, by the way, these are the things we do for security, right? Usually you think about security and onboarding. You think about, okay, who's got the key to the door? When can you access the door? What's the code, right? All those kinds of things. Yeah. Then also thinking about specific practices around data security, communication security, all those things. I think that's going to be more and more important as we get more and more into this, like potentially international world of we were already an international world, but more and more common for what we would think of as traditionally domestic, right? U.S. based employees working and living internationally, maybe still for American companies. Yeah.
There are countries that are they're modifying their immigration laws and policies in order to attract these people. I mean, I think there's some places that are seeing that this is an opportunity, it's a change, and it's a great revenue opportunity for them. So
awesome.
Yeah. Hey, how's your GameStop stock doing?
Oh man, I haven't followed that. I really wish I had. Man, I really should have been paying attention to that. Do you know how it's doing? Oh,
it ran back up again. They ran it back up. Oh, yeah, the Reddit.
264? Holy cow.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Wow, it got down to 52 and then back up to 2. Man.
Yeah.
Congratulations to all of the 12-year-olds out there who took their lawnmower money, and when the stock was $11, they said, I'm going to buy myself 10. I'm going to spend $100. And I'm going to buy about 10 shares of GameStop stock, and then they sold it for $2,650. Congratulations to that 12-year-old. Yeah. And now, how do they go in the world thinking about like what a normal stock market is?
Right.
And doesn't that just kind of ruin you?
I think it would. But here's the thing, though. So that scenario is like actually the mild scenario. The extreme scenario is the 12-year-old, and speaking facetiously, is that actually bought call options.
Oh my gosh.
because those things, like, if it was at 12 or 13 or 14 or something, even at 20, and you had bought a person had bought a call option for not very much, say the strike price on it was $30. Like, I can see how, like, those contracts were really cheap. Like, you were probably getting them for 50 cents or something. And then when that thing runs up, and when it ran up over 500, those call options all the way, went from being like worth 50 cents a piece to, 480 a piece. And so you're, you look at that, that's like that's like 1,000% or something. I mean, you could have taken $100 and turned it into $10,000.
Yeah.
Like, that's the extreme. And I think people did it. I think there are people that really did that.
Yeah. There's a small handful of people out there who probably did that. Probably more people did that than win the lottery in a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's a whole, I feel like there's a whole narrative wrapped up in this thing about, like, fighting the man, and, the system is rigged, financial system is rigged, and these Reddit traders in this like really disrespectful, funny, it's funny, but it's kind of insensitive group of people, just going after the hedgies, the hedge funds, and so anyway, I could go off on that for a while, and I won't. So
you know what? If you want to hear more about that, follow Jake Fisher on Twitter. And I can guarantee you there's going to be someday something he's going to see. He's going to get excited about that. And if you want to hear more, you should just follow him. And I bet you'll hear more about it one day.
Yeah, you probably will. That's awesome. Oh, man, this has been fun.
So much fun. We had a little break there, but now we're back.
We did. Yeah, my COVID break, man. I appreciate everybody appreciate you primarily being patient with me. So
no, man, you've been more than patient with me multiple times. So thank you.
My pleasure. Hey, so for people who don't know, it's the Talky podcast. We're talking about the worlds of sales and marketing and technology and business, strategery, entrepreneurship, and how they interact with one another. I did say strategery on purpose.
Strategery.
Strategery.
It's got a certain, you have to have a certain emphasis on the right syllable.
Syllable, yeah.
Right. It's got to be strategery.
That's strategery. And nuclear strategery.
Nuclear.
Yeah. Good old W.
I know.
Good old W.
I love him in the vaccine commercial, right? They've got this
I love it. Yeah.
And it's all, well, most of the former living presidents. And W's like, I can't wait to get out to a Rangers game and see that stadium full.
Oh, that's right, man. I love that. And,
that's great.
Man, it's the God honest truth is like, that resonates with me. Like, I wasn't necessarily the biggest W fan, but damn, I'm with you on that, George. Let's go. Let's go to the game, man.
Let's do it.
Get her going. Hey, just so we are online at talkytalkypod.com, and of course, everywhere the finest podcasts are consumed. Man, Mike, this has been fun. It's really great to get back into the saddle.
I know. I love it. This is really great.
Yeah. Super fantastic. I hope you have a good one, man.
Hey, you too. Thanks.
See you. Okay.